Super Bowl is nearing, and if anybody knows me, they know that I probably would rather watch anything else in the world than football. However, I do love a lot of easy-to-eat finger foods. So today, I'm going to be making a variation on Lauren Toyota's artichoke crab cakes, and I'm going to be turning them into amazing sliders. Funny thing about this recipe, this is actually the first recipe I made when I went vegan, and it's the first picture that I ever posted to my vegan Instagram. So it's kind of a bit of a throwback, but I'm altering it up a little bit, making it easy, handheld, perfect for a Super Bowl party. So stick around and let's make artichoke crab cake sliders. I'm gonna be running through the assembly of the artichoke heart patties pretty quickly because I'm gonna just link you to Lauren Toyota or Hot for Foods video where she makes these, but I'll just be showing you a variation of how I'm gonna make them a little bit smaller later in the video, so I'm just gonna quickly throw all these ingredients in a bowl. The recipe that I'm using calls for 2 cups of marinated artichoke hearts. I didn't really think too much as I bought these if this was enough for 2 cups, but I'm going to make it work. You definitely want to measure though. You probably do need a little bit more than 1 of these jars, but notice I'm saving the juice in the bottom. You're going to need that for the cake recipe in just a moment. So I'm going to be cutting up these artichoke hearts here. So I'm going to swap out this bowl, which I'll need back in a moment, and get a cutting board so I can quickly chop these up. Now, of course, this is supposed to emulate a crab cake, so you want to slice up your artichoke hearts so that they roughly resemble crab meat. These are not going to taste like a crab cake. They're going to taste like artichoke heart cakes, but it's the texture and the style of cooking that's going to be reminiscent of a crab cake, but that's okay. You're not really wanting the crab flavor anyways, so just accept that. These are artichoke heart cakes, and you will love them. The artichoke hearts are all cut up, and now before I swap this out with the bigger bowl that I'm gonna be mixing everything in, I'm actually gonna take 2 tablespoons of this marinating liquid and put it into the bowl. And this just adds a bit of acidity and extra flavor to the cakes. So I'm gonna start out with a 1/2 cup chopped diced celery. I have a 1/4 cup of shallots, also finely minced. I have my artichoke hearts. Again, you want 2 cups of these chopped, and actually looking at it after it's been chopped, it looks like it's pretty much 2 cups worth, so I think I'm gonna be okay. Have here a teaspoon of lemon juice, and I'm just gonna mix these around here to combine before I add the dry ingredients. So I'm gonna be adding a 1/2 cup of chickpea flour. I have a teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of sugar, some black pepper, and the star ingredient is a teaspoon of Old Bay seasoning. So I'm just going to add that in here and mix it all up to combine. If you have seen my other videos where I use chickpea flour, or even the original video where Lauren Toyota makes these crab cakes, you will hear that chickpea flour is absolutely disgusting if you are to eat it on its own. So I do not recommend tasting this mixture at this stage. You will not be too happy. It's gritty, it's bitter, it's not delicious. But that flavor cooks away when the chickpea flour cooks, and you'll be left with a delicious artichoke heart cake. All right, I'm gonna try to get about 8 different patties out of this for 8 sliders. So I'm gonna be using this ice cream or cookie scoop, and I'm not gonna fill it entirely full. Also, if you notice that this is not really coming together or not sticking together, don't be afraid to add a bit more chickpea flour just to keep things stuck together. So I'm actually gonna put a bit in my hand, form it into a patty. You can see that it is holding its shape. And I'm just gonna be putting it onto a plate here so I can set it into the freezer for a bit so that it firms up. That's just gonna make my breading process a little bit easier. While the artichoke cake patties hang out in the freezer for a bit, they only need to stay in there maybe 5 to 10 minutes. I'm gonna be making the sauce that I'll be putting on top of the sliders. It's going to be a Maple-Dijon horseradish sauce. So let's go ahead and assemble that. For the sauce, I wanted to make something that was creamy, that was sweet, that balanced out a lot of the acidity that's actually in the cakes. So I'm just kind of eyeballing this, but I need just about 1/4 cup of vegan mayonnaise. Of course, veganese is my absolute favorite. So again, just about 1/4 cup of that. To that, I'm going to be adding a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. about 2 tablespoons of real maple syrup. And it's completely optional, but if you do enjoy spice, the last thing I'm going to be adding is some horseradish. Now be careful that you're not using a creamed horseradish. Read the directions, make sure it's pretty much just ground up horseradish. So I'm gonna add probably the equivalent of a ½ teaspoon or so in there. And I'm gonna mix it up. I'm gonna let this sauce hang out in the fridge for a bit, just let the flavors mingle and let it firm up a bit. And then it's time to create the breading for the cakes. So here is my breading station. I have the cakes that have freshly come out of the freezer, and I'm going to be putting some breadcrumbs in here. These are just some organic breadcrumbs. Again, make sure to read the ingredients to make sure that there's no hidden dairy or anything strange in them. So I'm gonna put a fair amount in there, and just to spice it up, I'm gonna be adding some Old Bay seasoning as well to the breadcrumbs. Now I will be frying these in oil. You could easily air fry this recipe. I would definitely add a tiny bit of oil to the breadcrumbs if you were doing that. But I think that if you're going to be serving people who are not vegan, it's not the time to start to cut out fat and to try to make things super healthy. This is a party food and you want to make sure that people actually enjoy this. So we're going to be frying it in oil. Over here is where I'm going to be dredging. In the original recipe, it called for a chickpea flour dredge, a dip in some plant-based milk, and then into the breadcrumbs. I'm gonna try to speed that up a bit and just kind of make a bit of a batter with the chickpea flour and some water. Hopefully I can cut out an extra step, but we'll see if it works. So I'm just mixing chickpea flour with water here. So I'm gonna move this stuff aside just to make my life easier so I don't knock anything over. And you want this to be a consistency, just like a thin batter. You want it to coat the fork, but you don't want it too thick. All right, let's try it out. Lightly coat it, and then put it in the breadcrumbs. These were getting a little bit crumbly as I was beginning to bread them, so I'm actually gonna put them back into the freezer just for a couple of minutes while I clean things up and get the pan ready to fry them. If you're gonna be making this for more people, this recipe I'm sure easily duplicates, so just double it up, triple it up, and I mean, maybe a little bit labor intensive here with the breading and everything, but it's definitely worth it. Your guests will be impressed. So let's throw these in the freezer and I'll show you how to set up the stove. As I mentioned before, these would air fry up very nicely, but we're not really going for healthy with this. We're going for decadent and good time. So I'm gonna be pan frying these here. To do that, I'm gonna start with a bit of olive oil and a pretty healthy drizzle. I want it to pretty coat the bottom of the pan. I'm not gonna be deep frying these, but just enough to coat the bottom should be sufficient. I'm using olive oil. You could use a vegan butter. You could use any oil that you want. I think the olive oil gives it a nice flavor though. So let this get up to temperature and then I'll be throwing those inside. All right, my oil is pretty hot here. It's on medium heat and I'm just gonna be adding these into the oil. You can hear a nice sizzle. Also double check that they're holding their shape when you put them in here. Depending on the size of your pan, you may have to do these in a couple of batches, but I think I should be okay with these here. I'm just gonna let these hang out until they get nice and brown on one side, then flip them over. These have been going for a few minutes and they smell amazing and they are ready to flip. Look at that nice golden brown. You don't wanna get the pan too hot. See that one's breaking up a little bit, not a problem. You don't wanna get the pan too hot because you do want them to cook all the way through. Again, you have that raw chickpea flour inside, so you don't want them to cook too fast, get too dark without heating all the way through. These are perfectly browned and I'm actually just going to take them out of the pan and you can see they're firm. I do have asbestos fingers, so be careful touching these, they are hot, but I can feel that they're crispy and that they are firm all the way through, so I can tell that the chickpea flour is going to be cooked. And I'm just gonna be removing these to a paper towel so that they can drain or absorb a little bit of the grease. And I'm gonna keep the pan warm here because I'm going to use this to warm up the buns a little bit. I've taken all of the patties out of the pan and I'm going to be warming up my buns. I have these mini sesame seed buns from Trader Joe's that, according to my calculations, do check out. They are vegan. For today, I'm just gonna be making 4 of these. I'm not serving a whole big group of people, so I'm only gonna be heating up 4 of these buns. You could add a little bit of oil to the pan if you wanted to, but I think the residual oil that's still left in there and the heat, I'm just gonna put these in here for a couple minutes just so they get a little bit of crispiness on the bun and warm through a bit. So I'll see you when we're ready to plate. I have 4 slider buns here that have been nicely browned, and I'm gonna add just a small bit of sauce to the bottom, just so that the flavor carries all the way through the sliders. Not a ton though. Now, because I'm just assembling these 4, I'm gonna have 4 left over. These will reheat actually pretty nicely. These are good to serve at room temperature. So even if you don't use them all at one time or you wanna prepare them slightly ahead of time, you can definitely do that. Add a generous portion of the sauce to the top. You could swap out this sauce also. Lauren Toyota has a horseradish, I think tartar sauce that she uses, which would be amazing on this as well. I just wanted a sweeter taste for my versions. Some shredded lettuce, just to add a bit of crunch. I would maybe use some tomatoes, but I couldn't find any really good fresh Roma tomatoes in the grocery store while I was shopping, so I don't have any of those today. Pickles if you wanted a little bit more acidity. And there we go. We have our artichoke cake sliders with sweet and spicy maple mustard sauce. I just want to start off by thanking Lauren Toyota for such an amazing recipe. Now, just a little bit of insight into this. It's probably July 2nd, July 3rd, 2016. I started to look on YouTube, started to look at various videos for vegan recipes. July 4th is the day that I decided to go vegan. I had been grocery shopping. I got the ingredients to make these crab cakes, and it was the very first thing that I made. And here we are more than a year and a half later, and I haven't gone back. So I really want to say a huge thank you to her for such a great recipe that was able to show me that vegan food can be amazing, delicious, decadent, and that by cooking it myself, I can make some amazing food. So here's my variation. It has this delicious, spicy, sweet maple and mustard sauce. And these sliders, aren't they adorable? They almost look like kind of like a little fried chicken slider, but when you bite into it, you do notice that crispiness at first, but there's such nice acidity from the artichoke hearts that it is almost like there is a pickle or something else in there. So that's why I wanted to balance it out with a really sweet and spicy sauce. If you're gonna be serving these at a party, like I said, this is a great Super Bowl party dish. I would really recommend maybe putting these out on the buns and not putting the sauce on. Allow people to put the sauce on themselves, or even have a couple of different sauces that people could put on. Adding extra pickles could be great as well. Some tomatoes, other veggies, you know, take this base and do with it what you will. So I'm gonna finish these. You have a great day. Watch the rest of my videos. I have a great video showing you how to cook things in the air fryer. So you could easily make these in the air fryer if you wanted to save a few calories and a little bit of oil as well. So stick around here. New videos every Monday. Like this video if you like it. Subscribe to this channel so you're aware when new videos come out. And follow me on Instagram as well at monsonmadethis. If you make any of these dishes, please tag me, #monsonmadethis, and I will see you next Monday.